I probably know the answer to this already, but Chris doesn't look this pixelated in our actual broadcast. Yes? Okay, good.
I wish I was pixelated. I'd look a lot better.
I am kind of slightly pixelated.
I'm going to San Francisco this weekend, and I plan on being very pixelated, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Be good humans. Be good humans. Be good humans, or we will think you suck. Be good humans. Be good humans. Be good humans, or we will think you suck.
Welcome in, everybody. We are broadcasting live from the Rumba Room in Boca Raton, Florida. Nice to have you here. Thank you so much to join us. This is the Be Good Humans podcast.
It is indeed. Wow, you're so good with those openings.
You
really draw them in.
Really do.
You do. You know why?
No, why?
Because you, Brian Phelps, are an artiste.
An artiste?
You are an artiste. That's where you put the E on and you make it fancy.
Wow, artiste.
Yes,
now,
you
what
are.
What makes you say that?
Because I want to talk about art.
Oh, great. All right, let's talk about art. Because, me personally, I know a lot about art, but I don't know what I like.
You don't? Are you an art fan? Are you an art lover?
I am. I am an art lover. I by no means know. I go deep into the artiste's catalog.
You don't have to be an expert, but you know what you like.
Honestly, yeah. I do.
How do you skew? Are you like contemporary, classic? What kinds of art do you like?
The way I enjoy music, I'm pretty eclectic. If it touches me, if it affects me, then I love it. You've been to my house. I don't have a great deal of art on the walls, but I do. I appreciate the things that really touch me.
Yeah.
Like I went to the Louvre. I took my girlfriend to Paris.
It's a good place to get moved by art.
Oh my God. And I was rubbernecking the whole time, just like, oh my God, look at this.
Yeah.
We saw the Mona Lisa, of course, and what everybody says when they see it for the first time. It's so small.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, I just loved it. I stood there and just stared at it. Mm-hmm. But then I wanted to go to the sculpture wing, and that is where I was really it was almost too much. Too much. So I'm kind of looking around and I'm backing up slowly and just kind of looking at different things. I back up and I bump into somebody. And I turn around and it wasn't a somebody. It was the Venus de Milo. I'm not kidding you. I bumped in to they should rope that sculpture off. I mean, this is probably why she lost her arms.
This is also probably why your photos...
and why she lost her arms.
Exactly why she lost her arms and why your photo's on the wall at the Louvre security office, right?
So that was great. I have a dear friend, who I'm going to talk about because she's kind of connected to our upcoming guest. Franny, my personal assistant. She's been with me for over 25 years, and I have no idea, Trey, why, because she's 10 times smarter than me, but I'm very lucky that she's in my life. But she turned me on to a local artist who happens to be one of the rare artists who was alive to appreciate, still is, to appreciate and to enjoy his success.
Oh, who are we talking about?
Ed Ruscha.
Oh, I love Ed Ruscha.
Oh, you know it?
Oh, my God, yes.
He's so amazing.
Yeah,
Like Spago used to have Ed Ruschas all over the place. And I jokingly said to Wolfgang one time, I said, can I have one of those? And he goes, no, Brian, you cannot. This is ridiculous. They cost a lot of money. Well, I tried to buy an Ed Ruscha print for my assistant, Franny, for one Christmas. $8,000 for a print?
Oh, yeah, even the prints. I mean, but here's the thing. Like you said, I'm happy that he's around to enjoy his success, but he is considered to be one of the most iconic LA artists.
Yeah. And he's cool, too.
He's super cool. He was friends with my late father-in-law. I never got a chance to meet him, but I love his work.
So that's about as far as you go, as far as a fan of certain, except for our upcoming guests. Again, I keep teasing that, don't I?
That's okay.
But I always like the Vargas girls in Playboy magazines. Those were very artistic.
I bet you were a fan of the Patrick Nagel, too.
I did. I really was.
Yeah, right? Duran, that stuff. Yeah. I like painting, definitely. I'm a big Hopper fan, and do
you collect?
No. I'm a I mean, some photographs, but not paintings. But I'm a Hopper fan and a Seurat fan. But like you and the Venus de Milo, like sculpture is my jam.
Yeah.
So like the first artist I fell in love with as a kid, actually in Oklahoma City, there is a giant sculpture that is iconic that I'm sure everyone here has seen if they don't know the name of, which is called End of the Trail by James Earl Fraser.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
This is the Native American on horseback with his spear tilted down, and it's very somber. It was very moving, even for me as a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
But my favorite sculptor, this is a crazy story. So this is a guy named Franz Xaver Messerschmitt. Okay.
From the airplane Messerschmitt?
No. This is a German-Austrian sculptor from the 1700s. Okay.
Ooh, show and tell.
Yes, show and tell. So, well, at least for those who are in the viewing audience, but perhaps you can describe. These are little miniature bust reproductions of some of his famous busts. Now, do you notice anything odd about these sculptures?
That they all three look like three of the diners. There's Putch.
Yes, that's true.
There's
that's true.
All right. No, I don't.
Well, they're all making very bizarre expressions for classically sculpted busts.
Oh,
right?
Sure. Okay.
Normally, like a sculpted bust is very, very serious.
Mm-hmm.
And these are like a guy yawning or screaming, a guy sticking his lips out and making an ugly face, another guy who looks like he might be sobbing.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And these are just miniature versions of the actual life-size bust. But the thing about this artist, Franz Xaver Messerschmitt, he's a German-Austrian sculptor, and he was so good that he was commissioned by the Empress of Austria to do all of these serious royal busts, like you would imagine would be normally sculpted in marble and the like. And he was super, super talented, but also pretty much like every other artist, ourselves included, if we can refer to ourselves with that word, a little bit nuts, right?
Oh, sure.
And
we can accept.
Right. And then when Messerschmitt took it a step further and actually started to hallucinate.
Yeah.
On a daily basis, which, by the way...
on drug kind of
No, according to the historical record, it was actually due to some relatively common health issues that today could have been easily fixed. But back in the 1700s, they didn't have Tums for acid indigestion.
Okay.
But he started to hallucinate, and because of that, he got passed over for this important professorship at this Austrian art academy, right? And that forced him to start putting all of his bitterness into sculpting these bizarre busts. And he put windows on his studio facing out to the public, and he would fill the windows with these creepy, crazy faces to basically tell the world, and specifically the art world, how he felt about them. And he would look at himself in the mirror, pinch himself so hard that he would make a face, and then that would be the face that he would go and sculpt in stone. So anyway, I love that kind of stuff. There's a big collection of his stuff at the Belvedere in Vienna, and also here at the Getty in LA if anybody's local and wants to check it out.
Do you remember the first time you saw the David?
Oh my God, in Florence.
In Florence? Yeah. Isn't it amazing?
It's extraordinary. It's breathtaking, and it's one of those things, unlike the Mona Lisa, where maybe it's just because you fight the crowds to see it. Like, the David is like, you are genuinely awestruck by it.
I stood there for half an hour.
Yeah.
And just, how old is that? That's got to be over 20 years old.
This is where we need
David,
an expert.
Right? Yeah,
this is where we're ill-suited to even be doing this show.
But things like that, things like I said, that kind of just moved me.
Yeah, and artists, I think I would have no problem making this argument with you, are some of the most important good humans in our lives, because they basically speak a universal language, right? They speak to all of us in some way, because art usually reflects all of us in some way. And I think, and you know me in the quotes, but Edgar Degas once said that art is not what you see, it's what you make others see.
Wow.
And so I think that's a good place for us to maybe ramp into our guests, because...
Okay. All right, well, let's do that then. We are going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to meet an artist who didn't even know he was an artist, who was actually an aircraft engineer.
Okay.
Until life took him in a few unexpected directions, and he decided to follow the signs toward a whole new artistic way of moving people. You know what I just did? You know what just happened there?
Like a largemouth bass, you just hooked me.
That, but also...
Yes.
Foreshadowing. Follow the signs. That's foreshadowing. I foreshadowed it. It's foreshadowing.
Please do follow those signs, and we'll be right back.
Foreshadowing. Know it. Live it. Love it.
Be good humans, be good humans, be good humans, or we will think you suck.
And welcome back to Be Good Humans. Joining us today is a guy named Chris Raley. Let me tell you about Chris Raley. Chris Raley is a deeply gifted Fresno, California-based artist who makes extraordinary miniature versions of classic signs. And Brian, since 2018, he has created more than 300 faithful reproductions of incredible signs, really from all over the planet. Everything from roadside diners to iconic Las Vegas casinos. They might be signs that still exist. They might be signs that have been gone for years, but Chris has this amazing motto that no sign is gone forever.
That's true, and I've got to say, he is highly sought after.
Yes, he is.
He's turning people away.
Yes, and that is because...
But luckily, because of you and your relationship with Chris, he did a huge favor for me, and we'll get to that later. But Chris,
yes, welcome
Raley,
to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored that you would even consider me for something like this. I was really excited when the podcast started. I was one of the first people to hear about it, I'm sure, and just a couple weeks later, Trey reached out and asked about me being on. So yeah, I'm not worthy.
Oh, you're more than worthy. But see, here's the thing about Chris, and knowing you, Chris, you are clearly as humble as you are talented. So I know that all this talk about you as a highfalutin artist, because we've been talking about art, probably has your head spinning. But before we talk about your art, let's talk a little bit about your earlier identity as an Air Force veteran to this day, obviously, and a skilled aircraft engineer. So tell us more about that side of yourself. Where were you stationed? What kinds of things did you used to do?
Well, let's go back a little bit before that, because there's a reason I went into the military.
Okay, great.
As a small kid, I was really into space. I wasn't into Star Wars or Star Trek. I was into NASA. I was into the real stuff. This space shuttle was. I was born in '71, so when the shuttle started flying in the early 80s, I was fifth grade, and that was kind of my goal. I thought, I want to be an astronaut one of these days. And then I started getting more into kind of the hardware aspect of it. I loved the spaceship, and I realized that at a young age, especially with really bad vision that I had growing up, that probably would never be an astronaut. But I always loved the hardware of it. And so I graduated high school, kind of bounced around for a few years, and in 1993, I decided, well, I'm sorry, let me back up. Out of high school, I earned my aircraft mechanics license.
Okay.
I completely skipped over that. I was 19 when I earned it, which is very young.
That's pretty young.
Very young.
FAA certified aircraft mechanic.
Wow.
And couldn't find a job anywhere because nobody would hire me because I was a 19-year-old kid with no experience. And so I went to the military in 1993, and I got a guaranteed job as an aircraft mechanic to kind of pad my skills and my experience to go with my license. I had planned on serving for 4 years and getting out. I wound up enjoying it, and I ended up doing 2 tours from 93 to 01. Okay. But what I did as an aircraft mechanic in the Air Force, we were called crew chiefs.
Okay.
And we were responsible for the day-to-day upkeep of our airplanes. So
wow, it's a big responsibility.
Tire changes, refuels, servicing engine oils, if there's a problem in the flight when they land, we take care of it between flights, things like that.
Making sure if the rubber band is twisted enough.
Correct.
That kind of stuff.
Right. We had these giant cheater bars that we would use, and we just hand it off to the guy, and we just crank. And for those Pacific flights, man, we'd be winding that thing for like 5 hours.
I bet. Can't imagine.
Yes. Right. And what was hard is because it was a tanker, it was a refueling plane, so we had to go out in flight, and the plane would come up behind us to refuel, and we'd be out there on the wingtip winding up the rubber bands on those airplanes.
I see he's going to run with your joke for the rest. This is good.
You never do.
He's a much better partner than I am.
All right.
But here's the thing. You're an aircraft mechanic. You are literally tasked with, keeping the brave men and women who serve alongside you safely in the air. This is a very important job, a very high responsibility, but it also feels like it's 180 degrees away from what you do now.
It is.
So can you try Brian help us turn a corner and talk to us about what happened in your life to make you pivot into a completely new career as an artist?
Okay, well, buckle up. So I got out of the Air Force with the intention of going to work for the airlines.
Mm-hmm.
So I was stationed up, but you asked where I was stationed. A little bit in North Carolina, but the majority of my time in the Air Force was at Travis Air Force Base in the Northern Bay Area,
right
between San Francisco and Sacramento, up in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And I got out in January of 2001, and I went straight to work for American Airlines, which was my ultimate goal, was to get experience and work for the airlines.
Okay.
Well, we all know what happened in September of 2001, and especially with American Airlines and United Airlines.
Yep.
And so shortly after all of that chaos, for those not following, 9/11, of course, is what I'm talking about. But I lost my job. The job I'd been working for 8 years, I only worked at it for about 9.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was previously married at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Wound up moving to Fresno, kind of in the area where I grew up, and then got another job working on airplanes for Allegiant Air, which if you're familiar with Las Vegas, you've heard of Allegiant Stadium, where the Raiders play.
Right.
I was part of the team that set up Allegiant Air in Las Vegas. I was their senior mechanic. I moved with them from Fresno to Las Vegas, and I was the senior mechanic for Allegiant Air in 2004. And what I didn't know is there was a divorce coming. I had no idea.
Okay.
And threw me for a loop, threw my whole world upside down. Felt like everything was falling apart. But looking back on it, it wasn't my world falling apart. It was all the pieces of my life falling into place where they actually needed to be. It was wound up being the best thing that ever happened to me, because later on that year, I reconnected with a childhood friend. Her name was Angelica, a young girl that I had known. Well, she was a young girl then. Someone I had known since the 3rd grade. We were friends as kids. We had a shared love of the Beatles. We had we both, I thought I knew more about the Beatles, and I was kind of arrogant, and she would school me on, and she still schools me on Beatles stuff.
Okay, good.
But so we reconnected. And the rest is kind of history. Not to gloss over the last 18, 19 years, but we got together and we got married in 2005. And our son, Matthew, who just started his senior year of high school yesterday, Matthew was born in 2007.
Okay.
So one of the things so I in 2004, I gave up my aircraft career, like the divorce and everything, caused all that to end. And I kind of said, that's it for me. I've moving back to Fresno, there's not a whole lot of work to be had in aviation. So
got to find a new path.
Right. I was looking for other things to do. And my wife is a teacher. She's a career teacher, been teaching for now, I think 29 years. But back then she'd been teaching for 10 or 12. And she talked me into going back to school and getting my teaching credentials so that we could have summers off and maybe even work together and commute together like some couples do.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so while all of this is going on, our son Matthew was on the way, and Matthew was born in 2007, and about a year after he was born, we started noticing some things about Matthew that just weren't adding up. He wasn't meeting his goals. He wasn't meeting his milestones. And sure enough, we found out by the time he was about a year and a half old that he was on the path of being diagnosed with autism. Okay. They wouldn't officially diagnose him until he was 3 years old.
Right.
But at a year and a half, we kind of started to know.
Yeah.
And so what I did, instead of going to work as a teacher, I hold 2 teaching credentials in the state of California. I have a special ed credential and a K-6 general ed credential. But instead of working as a teacher, we made the decision that one of us needed to stay home and take care of our son because he needs 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, taking care of a kids with special needs is obviously a full-time job of its own. So you not only had to be there, but I'm imagining you also at that point were kind of racking your brains over how to be there for your family, but also how to help provide for them.
Well, the providing part, thank goodness, my wife is an amazing woman, and she's an amazing spouse, and she has been teaching for a long time, and she has worked her way over on her, how there's like a pay scale, and the longer you're at something, the more you do. So we struggled. We did struggle,
Sure.
but she is the one who was providing for the family. And I'm, I have absolutely no qualms about being in the supporting role to my wife. She's incredible at what she does.
So you're staying home, taking care of your son, and you traveled a lot in your earlier days, and so you've found a way to kind of travel sitting on the couch, and that is online trips. And this is a term I'd never heard before until I started preparing for this interview. Online vacations, online trips, where you're kind of viewing the world on your computer.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was starting to do, raising Matthew and taking care of him and being the one who's with him in the middle of the night so that my wife can rest, because she has to wrestle 20 kindergartners every day.
Sure.
So I would do a lot of kind of just surfing the web, some virtual road trips, a lot of Google Maps, even to this day. Google Maps, I love it.
Sure.
But I started, I just started kind of tinkering. And to be honest, the thing that got me down this path, let me back up a little bit. I decided I was going to make kind of a man cave. I don't like the phrase man cave, but I was going to make a little room with my drum set and just kind of some artwork and just have a nice little spot. Mm-hmm. And I started looking for some art that I could create. I had been making autism awareness jewelry for my son and selling it on Etsy. Okay. So I have a laser cutter and a 3D printer, and I know how to do some things.
Obviously some creative impulses there. So it's, you've got... You've got the engineering background, but you've got some creative skills. So you're making some jewelry, but you're also doing this couch surfing, the little Google Earth online vacationing.
Right. And I started coming across these, and so for decorating the room, I wanted it to be kind of a little mid-century modern little room.
Sure.
Right.
And it ended up taking a turn. It went from mid-century modern room to kind of mid-century NASA break room. It's kind of what it looked like. I had like a big tanker desk. Yeah. I made a Saturn V piece of artwork.
Oh, nice. Wow!
But I started looking at online. I started coming across these amazing neon signs that were space themed, and I thought, that would be really cool to make some wall art to put up on the wall in my room, just to decorate it.
Chris, like back in the 60s, the 50s, 60s, when that was the thing.
Yeah, kind of like the Moon Motel sign we can see over his shoulder there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that sign specifically, let me hold it up here. This one's rather large. This is the sign. Go ahead. I'll hold it up so you can see it. This is the sign that made me want to make signs. This right here. I saw this online and my jaw just dropped. Fell in love with it.
If you're listening to us now, this is a clearly classic, nostalgic motel sign for an establishment called the Moon Motel. You can see the Earth, you can see this beautiful crescent moon. It could not, in a rocket, it could not be any more inviting to, especially a kid in the 60s, in the middle of the space race. So you start seeing those signs, and it inspires you in some way.
It does. I thought, you know what? I want to start. When I first saw it, I thought, I would love to make something like that, but I have no idea what I'm doing. I wouldn't even know where to start. So I started, I'm going to grab it right now. It's right here on the shelf. I found another space themed sign from, it's in Minnesota, from a place called Apollo Liquors. And now this was a liquor store.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, wow.
There was a Greek immigrant came to the U.S. in the 1960s, and he opened up a little a liquor store, and he wanted to celebrate both his Greek and his new American heritage. So Apollo, obviously, a Greek god, the Apollo Command Service module from the Apollo program that was currently happening, red, white, and blue. So this sign right here was another one that caught my eye, and I thought, well, this one will be a little bit easier to make. And it's very dusty and it's very simple. This took me about a month to make, but this was the first completed sign that I made for my collection. So between this one and the Moon Motel, there's about 4 years between the two as far as experience.
You start making these. You're enjoying creating these. Basically, it was just to put in your NASA break room, which is awesome. How did it go from that to being one of the most sought after artists ever.
I set up an Instagram account. I'd already had a personal Instagram account, but I set up a new Instagram account, and I didn't even know what it was going to be at the time. I didn't have a good name for it. It was the first name I had for it was Small You Later. Instead of Smell You Later,
Nice.
It was Small You Later,
Okay.
which I stole from the show Silicon Valley from a few years ago. But I wound up 9 is my lucky number. And I came up with Route 9 signs, and I started my Instagram page. And what's funny is I didn't have any intention to sell anything, to commission anything. It was just a little fun thing for me to do. And within about 2 months, I had like 4 orders for signs, and it was scary because I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea how I was going to fill these orders, but I knew that people wanted them.
Right.
And it really took off in the beginning of 2019. 2020, when everybody was on lockdown and nobody was going anywhere, that was the year that really it blew up for me, because I had a lot of people say, you know what, we can't go to Disneyland, or we can't go to our favorite place, but can you instead of us, we have the money to go, but we're not going to, can you make us a sign at the very least so we can have a little bit of it?
And not just private parties. You're also doing these for companies, aren't you?
All kinds of commissions, yeah.
Yeah, I've done pieces. I've done a few pieces for companies, but I did in Las Vegas. There's a foundation, the family that used to own the Imperial Palace, the casino in Las Vegas. They now have a charitable foundation, and they commissioned a sign for me. But most of my pieces are in private collections.
Brian, if you don't mind bringing up that first photo, we can share with our viewers and kind of describe to our listeners a little bit. I mean, his signs run the gamut. You can see, when you mentioned Disneyland, for example, there's
the original Disneyland marquee.
There's a miniature perfect version of the Disneyland sign, or the El Dorado Motel.
Musso and Frank.
Musso and Frank, exactly. The old Fisherman's Wharf sign in San Francisco. I mean, he's done so many of these.
And these are spot on to scale.
Yes.
That's his passion, is getting them just right.
That little one in the upper right-hand corner is another version of the Moon Motel sign that I actually sent to Australia last year. It was part of an exhibit with some of the top miniature artists in the world.
Wow.
And much like being on this podcast, I have no idea how I wound up in that group, but they asked me to participate. So that little Moon Motel, if that tells you anything, I've made the Moon Motel 3 or 4 times now.
Here's the thing: signs have, as evidenced by these photos and hearing you talk about them, signs have all kinds of nostalgia attached to them often. Just like one that sort of brought you first into Chris's orbit, right?
Well, yeah, I will tell you, there's that Instagram account you started, Chris, that brought me to you through Trey. And the story goes, and I talked about Franny earlier in the show, my assistant. She comes up from her office one time, and she mentions that she saw a post of an artist she follows on Instagram.
Right.
And of course, it was this photo of this built-to-scale recreation, perfection of the iconic Las Vegas Dunes Hotel and Casino marquee.
Ah, the Dunes.
And she also mentioned, the reason she told me this is because she knew you, and she said Trey follows this artist as well.
Oh, how funny.
So then she shares this beautiful story, and I mean beautiful story, of how when she was around 6 years old, her dad and mom started taking her to Vegas every year, and they would stay at the Dunes.
Okay.
Because Franny's dad, whose name was Frank, used to take care of the owner of the Dunes, Sid Wyman, whenever Mr. Wyman stayed at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel here in town, where Frank was the room service manager.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they got to go every year. And she said those trips were some of her fondest family memories.
This is a real sentimental history for her.
Sentimental. So something clicks in my head.
Yeah.
She mentioned that you follow the guy too, so I get on the phone with you.
Yeah.
And tell you that you and Franny are following the same artist. Well, you kind of got excited about that, and you tell me that you know him personally.
Yeah.
And you started giving me a bit of his history, which was absolutely captivating.
Yes.
So I asked you, I said, does this guy, because again, I have that little thing in my head, because she was so emotional when she talked about these vacations. I said, does this guy do private commissions for and at that point you said he's pretty busy. I don't know, but I can hook you guys up.
Yeah.
So we get in touch with each other. I think I called him and we chat on the phone for a bit, and I share Franny's story with him. Yeah. He was touched. I mean, you could tell the kind of guy he is. He was immediately touched, and he agreed to do another Dunes marquee that I would give Franny as a surprise for Christmas.
Okay, Ryan, you got to bring up our first photo here, so at least our viewers
is kind of a montage.
Check this out. Yeah, so if you're listening, this is an incredible sort of classic version of the Dunes Casino sign. It's
with
got
real cars driving underneath, by the way.
Real cars underneath.
He sent me a little envelope with little cars.
It's got a big base sign that advertises their popular show, Casino de Paris or Paris. And is it Viva Las Girls?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
just like the real acts that were there back in the 60s.
Yeah.
So he agreed to let me commission to do this. Yeah. And I want to say this about the man we're talking to, that he was wonderful to work with. You can tell by listening to him. He's just down to earth and just really sweet. He would call or text me with updates and send me photos every few days. And it was during one of these conversations, and this is what moved me. This is what touched me. During one of these conversations, I asked him if, kind of through the side door, hey, do you ever get requests to customize a project? Now, this is an incredibly successful artist.
Yeah, that could have gone either way.
That could have gone that holds true to every detail you can see in these pictures.
You don't want to get in the way of an artist's process.
But he didn't seem to mind me going there. And he just simply said, rarely do I get that request. But then he said the magic words. What did you have in mind? Kind of just like that. So I told him what I was thinking about, and he very kindly agreed. So Ryan, if you could punch up the next picture. This is a zoom in of the one we were showing.
Yep.
Now, if you could look down at the bottom of the marquee.
Yes, it says top of the strip, Russ Morgan and his orchestra, and then it says Frank and Franny nightly at the Sultan's table.
Oh, he did that for me. I mean, that's the kind of guy he is. That's the kind of just giving guy.
So this is the kind of thing where we're talking about, this is not just miniature sign reproductions. This is tapping directly. This is how art moves people, right? And in this case, it's using nostalgia, but it obviously flooded Franny with all kinds of positive memories about her father. Can you tell us, Chris, about a sign or signs that move you in some particular way and why?
I'm glad you brought that up, Brian, because to be honest, I had forgotten that little detail. I was thinking, where is he going with that? And then I remembered, that's right. Yeah. But in my work, it's not something that I'm going to keep. It's something that somebody wants. And if they want to make it that little extra special, why not? I'm not. You talk about, he's busy and he's that, I'm just a dude working at home in my spare time, taking care of dogs and cats and taking care of my son and not getting any sleep. But it's if I can do something like that and it's meaningful, of course I'm going to do it. What's funny, and I have a couple of little stories, but I made the most iconic sign of Las Vegas history not too long ago. You had a little tiny version of it in your photo. I recreated the Stardust sign.
Yeah.
Right.
And I took it back to the original location, to the ground where it used to stand, and I set it down.
Yeah, you were actually profiled by the Las Vegas Review-Journal about this particular sign reproduction that you donated to the Neon Museum in Vegas. So
Correct.
So yeah, tell us more about that experience, because
I love that he keeps getting up to go grab something.
I know, right?
I just love that.
The sign is extraordinary.
It really is. It really is.
I mean, because what in this modern day, being on the cover of a newspaper, I mean, that's newspapers themselves are rare. But here's one of my 10 copies of the Las Vegas Review-Journal.
Wow!
You can see me right there at the location of the original Stardust.
Yeah. That's so
but
cool.
I had people whose families worked there, people who visited there, much like Franny, people who visited there as kids, reaching out, thanking me, asking about having one made. And so I'm losing your question was.
Well, and it was literally just, are there signs in particular that have moved you? And maybe the Stardust is one of them.
There are a couple of signs. There was a sign for a place called Connie's Diner. Back east. I couldn't tell you exactly where it is, but I had a fellow reach out and ask me, hey, can you make this sign? And it's just a little small diner on the side of a road, you know? And I said, yeah, sure, you know. And he said that his mother, the man who commissioned it, that was his mother had passed away. And that was that was where they would go, and they would meet up kind of in the middle and eat at Connie's. And that was the last place that he had seen her, was at Connie's Diner. And so he asked me to recreate that sign for him in memory of his mom. Oh, wow. And so, you know, I mean, I'm half choked up just thinking about that.
Sure.
That someone would ask me to do that. Another one, not as emotional for me, but there was a sign, and I'm looking to my left because I have a wall of photos. It's helping me refresh my memory. But there was so I've made this giant, massive, the Stardust sign, but there was a laundromat back east called Lovely Laundry Coin Op. That's all it said, was Lovely Laundry Coin Op. It's for a laundromat. And I believe it's a hurricane blew the sign over. And there was a man who loved that sign so much he drove past it every single day. And then one day he drove by, and it was
destroyed,
toppled over, and they tore it down. And he asked me if I could recreate that. So I put as much love and care into recreation of a laundromat sign as I do into something like the Stardust sign, because it is there's so much of an emotional attachment. You know, the Stardust sign, the Las Vegas, there's a little bit of a connection there that we hadn't talked about. And if you saw that article, you'd see it. But I mentioned earlier that I had lived in Las Vegas briefly. And so I saw the Stardust sign with my own eyes, but I didn't appreciate it. It didn't mean much to me. I was busy working. I was busy trying to do my job. But I saw some of these massive signs back in the day, and I did not appreciate them. And now they're gone. But I had no idea, driving down the strip in 2002 when I was house hunting and seeing that sign, what a major part of my life that particular, like that Stardust sign, was going to be.
There you go.
And so when I left Las Vegas, I had a little bit of it was not the greatest situation. Like I said, I was getting divorced. And I left Las Vegas feeling kind of defeated, feeling like I had failed. And so now to be able to not only make signs from Las Vegas, not only take the signs to the original spot, but to get something like this 20 years later to happen, to return to the scene of what I consider one of my kind of darkest moments, and now it's I have an incredible relationship.
Look what happened. Hey, do you guys this might have been a Midwestern thing, but do you guys remember a chain called Maid-Rites?
No.
Maid-Rites?
No.
Okay, they were loose meat sandwiches.
Okay.
And my parents, my aunts, my uncles loved it. I think it was local. I think maybe they had 5 or 6 stores.
All right.
But for me, in my mind, and I don't know why, but that sign outside, the Maid-Rite sign, the color of the red, the font, the letters, everything was just so amazingly branded into my head.
Okay, well, I smell another commission coming on, Chris.
I'm thinking now. I have to find it.
As long as I can include the words loose meat sandwiches on the sign, because that just cracked me up.
Absolutely.
I've never heard that before.
Look, here's the bottom line. Although your artistic specialty is in miniature form, this story feels like such a full-scale demonstration of how art and artists not only inspire people all over the world, but also how their work inspires them.
Yeah.
And so here's to you and your work, Chris. You are most definitely a very talented and very good human. If people listening or watching would like to see more of your work and maybe even try to take a number and get in your long line of potential commissions, where's the best place for them to do that? Would it be your website?
I'm going to, you know what? I share most of my stuff. You see that right there, Route 9 sign on Instagram.
Yep.
If you look me up, That's my
Route 9
main
signs.
outlet.
Okay, so that's at Route 9 Signs on Instagram, and then and then also
You say route or route? I say route.
I don't know what you.
I say route.
Okay, so the artist says
I say
route.
route.
Okay, all right. I'm saying route from now on.
So route like Route 66, right?
Yeah, okay.
So at Route 9 Signs on Instagram, also route9signs.com is a website, and we can drop the link to that on our Be Good Humans podcast
You know what? I think
website.
I'm going to start saying root.
Okay, fine.
My email, if you want to go straight to the source, my email is chris@route9signs.com.
There you go.
Okay, fantastic.
And one of the things I wanted to bring up, and I would be remiss without bringing this up, is that, I had talked about my son, Matthew.
Sure.
My teenage son has autism and epilepsy. None of this happens without him.
Mm-hmm.
None of this happens without, were he typically developing, I'd probably be a third grade teacher, which no shame in that. Teachers are some of the most important people
Absolutely.
in our world, and we need to look out for our teachers. We need to protect our teachers.
Sure.
I'm thirsty. I need to take a drink here.
Definitely.
We need to look out for our teachers. So, but I would just be another working teacher. And again, there's no shame in that. But life threw, in the span of a few years, threw me about 3 or 4 major curveballs.
Mm-hmm.
And the art that I've created is the result of my son needing me to be home
Mm-hmm.
and needing me to be healthy and happy and well and not feel like it's all doom and gloom all the time. So this is something that has really helped me lift myself up. It gives me the strength to carry on with Matthew and take care of him, and so that my wife can do what she does. But it has also opened up my world to some of the most amazing people. And I'm looking at 2 of them right now on the screen.
Well, don't know about that, but right there, Chris, right there, that's what this show's all about.
Mm-hmm.
We get to meet people. We get to go kind of deep into these people
Yep.
that discover something in themselves to make the world a better place for them and many, many, many others.
No question. So here is to you, Chris. Here is to artists all over the world.
Cheers.
Here is to Matthew, your son, and your amazing wife, Angelica.
We know you've got some traveling coming up, Chris, but when you get back, maybe we can all go out and get truly pixelated.
Yes, let's do that.
There we go. I will be in your neck of the woods fairly soon.
Fantastic.
So
Fantastic, my friend. Thank you for making the time to join us today. Thank you for being such a good human.
Thanks for having me.
Be good humans, be good humans, be good humans, or we will think you suck.
Signs everywhere, signs blocking out the scenery.
Yeah.
Hey,
Oh.
hey, welcome back to
Yes.
the Good Humans podcast. Nice to have you here.
He was so cool.
So great, and you felt the heart in the guy.
Yeah.
So humble.
No, that is definitely the heart of an artist, and like we said, we'll drop a link to his website on our Be Good Humans podcast site. Please go there. Tell us about the good humans in your lives. Give us some pointers on how to be a good human. We're always open to those. Also, thank you for following us on the socials and Facebook and Instagram and all of that stuff.
I just want to say this guy's so talented, Chris,
Yeah.
that he has every right to be snooty.
Yeah, but
He's just so down
he's
to
the
earth
opposite
and nice.
of snooty.
I know. Really enjoyed that. Well, that's going to do it for our show.
Mhm.
Have you said everything you needed to say?
That's everything we needed to say,
all right,
my friend.
then we'll see you next time on the Be Good Humans podcast.
Hey, be good humans.
Be good humans, be good humans, be good humans, or we will think you suck.
Be Good Humans is executive produced by Brian Phelps, Trey Calloway, and Grant Anderson, with associate producers Sean Fitzgerald and Clementine Calloway in partnership with Straw Hut Media. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and remember, be good humans.